Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another Future Fight Vanguard video. We're still playing catch up on our Future Fight videos, and today we're going to knock out the G-BT13 Rising deck, which is our main Spike Brothers G-Break deck. Spike's got a little more support going into G-BT13 that allows them to do a lot more consistent attacks. I don't really like spikes, so I'm not really good about talking about them. But basically, the deck focuses on, just trying to get your opponent to 5 damage really quick, and then doing like the multiple attack combo using all your counterblast up, and just attacking to your opponent until they die. And if you don't, you kind of just lose because you lose your hand, which is why I don't like spikes. But we are going to be talking about it today, so I better like it for the sake of this video. But yeah, let's get right into the deck. We're going to flip over our G units as usual here. And then we're going to start with the main deck as usual. So let's talk about our grade 3s. Starting off with our grade 3s, we have 7 grade 3s in the deck, as usual at this point. Most decks run 7 to 8 grade 3s, so it's kind of just usual at this point. But we do run 7 Rising cards as our, so we run Old Rising Nova and then New Rising Great Star. So let's go over Great Star first. I wouldn't really say either one of them are your preferred ride. It really just depends on what's going on in the game. But I wouldn't really say either one of them are your preferred ride. It depends on what you're playing against. And if you're playing Control, like both of them are good to ride against Control just because of Rising Great Star's GB2, and then also Rising Nova's on Stride skill against Control to kind of, burn your opponent out a little bit. But either ride is good. But yeah, let's go over to Rising Great Star. We run 4 of him because he's also useful on the Rearguard Circle. So he has 3 abilities. The first ability is the Charge ability. For those of you who don't know, Charge is the mechanic that Spike Brothers has given to them, which says that when a unit with the Charge ability is placed on any circle that the Charge ability says. So it's usually Rearguard Circle because you obviously can't charge a Vanguard and put it back at the end of the battle, because then you'd be putting your Vanguard back and you'd be either de-riding or losing based off of if you have a soul or not. But yeah, so Rearguard Circle is usually charged. What happens is when you play a unit with an ability, you're able to declare if that unit is charging or not. If it is charging, at the end of the battle that it participates in, whether it's attacking or boosting, it goes to the bottom of the deck. So it allows you to do like a lot of hit and run mechanics like Spike Brothers have always been able to do. So yeah, Rising Great Star has charge. That's great. We have a lot of abilities in this deck as well that focus on calling cards with the charge ability. So that's great that Rising Great Star has charge. Then its second ability is when this unit is placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you can counterblast 1, shove a card into your soul from your hand. If you do, you search your deck for up to 1 grade 2 or less card with the charge ability. You call it to an open Rearguard Circle. You shuffle your deck, and if this unit is charging, then this unit gets plus 3,000 power. So this card can be really good to call a Fake Bomber with, because if Fake Bomber and Rising Great Star are both charging, and you use the skill of Rising Great Star that turn, then this is a 26k column by itself, so without triggers, so that's pretty good. Also, your opponent's just more inclined to no guard that. If they're at 5 damage, they have to guard it, so it makes really big columns for good reasons. So then we have our Generation Break 2 ability that says at the end of each turn, if the number of your rearguards is 2 or less, then you choose one of your rearguards, put into your soul. If you do, draw a card. So this is pretty good against Control, like I stated, like getting those units up off your board so that your opponent can't touch them. And it's just good for, building your soul, but also letting you draw some cards after you're done with the boosters or done with the attackers that are not charging. Then we have as our backup grade 3. I say backup, but it's good to ride either one of them. It just really depends on the situation. But we run 3 of the original Rising Nova, Exceptional Expertise. So its skill is has two abilities. First one's on the Vanguard circle, Generation Break 2. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can choose a card from your hand, put into your soul. If you do, you search your deck for up to one card, call it to an open rearguard circle, and then shuffle your deck. So this card can be really good under, you know, a couple scenarios. One of those scenarios being if you cannot stride and you are just on this card, it still does something when it's Generation Break 2 instead of just being like some kind of vanilla Vanguard, like Great Star is pretty much. But it also has a stride ability that says during your turn, when your G unit strides on top of this card, choose up to one of your Vanguards and it gets a skill. The skill that it gets is when this unit attacks, you can counterblast one, shove a card into the soul. If you do, you search your deck for up to one card, call it to an open rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and that unit gets plus 5,000 power. So it allows you more attacks at the cost of your hand, and it allows you to also give 5,000 to that unit, which could be crucial depending on what you call. Going on to our grade 2s, we have 12 grade 2s. We have 4 Wink Killer Misery. What this card does is when it attacks a Vanguard, if this unit is boosted, you can counterblast one, choose a card from your hand, put it into the soul, and then you search your deck for one card that's not Wink Killer, and then call it to open rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and this unit gets, or that unit that's called, gets 5,000 power. So this is kind of like a Crayon Tiger in my opinion, those types of cards where it just allows you an extra attack with power, because you can go for calling Heave Wheeze, and if Heave Wheeze gets called out by Wink Killer and you make it charging, then it's going to be 24k by itself, which is a pretty insane good number. Also, Razor Brugard will be 19 by himself. Lethal Forward will be 16 by himself. So these are all making really good numbers depending on what you need to call. Then we have 4 Razor Brugard. This is part of our combo in this deck with these 3 cards being Rising Great Star, Razor Brugard, and Fake Bomber. It allows you to kind of do a multi-attack until I'm either A, out of hand, or out of counterblast, or the attacks are just done. So it has 3 abilities. The first one is Charge, so you can make it charging when you call it by an effect if you choose to. Then the Continuous Rearguard Generation Break 1 ability. It says if this unit is in charging, it gets plus 5,000 power. So it becomes a 14k by itself when it's charging. And then when this charging unit is put into the rearguard from your deck, or put from rearguard into your deck, you can counterblast one, shove a card into your soul, and then you call a non-grade 2 card with the charge ability to a rearguard circle that this unit was not on, and then shuffle your deck. So what that means is this card is actually very specific. You have to Razor Brugard call to wherever Razor Brugard was not there. So that is very important to keep in mind. Like, you want to attack with your other columns first before this, so that you can place the other attacker in the other front row. Then we have 2 Lethal Forward. Lethal Forward has its ability, which is charge, and then it has its actual ability, which is Generation Break 1. When this unit becomes charging, until the end of the turn, it gets plus 2,000 power in that on-hit skill. The on-hit skill is when this attack hits Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard with Rising in its name, search your deck for up to one card not named Lethal Forward, call it to an open rearguard circle, shuffle your deck. So Lethal Forward can be pretty good at extending your attack combos, as long as your opponent lets you hit. You know what I mean? You can just keep going on and on. Then we have 2 Heave Wheeze. Heave Wheeze has the charge ability, and then it also has a Generation Break 1 continuous ability that says if this unit is charging, this unit gets plus 10,000 power. So it can be pretty good. Like I said, it becomes 19 by itself, and if you call it off with some of the abilities that give 5k, like Wing Killer and Original Rising Nova, then it will be 24. Then we have 4 Acrobat Verdi, obviously our stride fodder. Like, you know, this is a stride deck, we run 4. Also, you can facilitate getting your different risings. If you start hand with a rising grade 3 that you don't want, you can go get the other one and search for it. Then we have 4 PGs, which is Cunning Brain in this deck. It has 3 abilities, or it actually has 4 abilities, sorry. The first ability is Sentinel. Can't run more than 4 Sentinels in your deck. You guys know that already. Second ability, it has the charging ability. So you can activate charge if you want to or not when you call this card. And then the third ability is the actual PG skill that allows you to PG any unit, Vanguard or Rearguard, as long as you discard a card from your hand. And it comes from the hand when it's guarding. And then its fourth ability is when this unit is put into your deck from rearguard, aka when it was charging, then attacked or boosted. You choose up to 3 cards from your drop zone, bind them face up, and then you choose one of your units, and it gets plus 10,000 power for each Cunning Brain in your bind zone. So basically what happens is when this card is charging on the field, you want to bind cards from your drop zone that end up being Cunning Brains, so that you can give like plus 10,000, plus 20,000, plus 30,000 to whatever your target is. Then we have 4 Fake Bomber. This is a key card in the grade 1 lineup. It has charge, and then it says if this unit is charging, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, and a skill that says when this unit boosts, if you have a Vanguard with Rising in its name, you can Soul Blast 2. If you do, you choose the card from your hand, call it the open rearguard circle, and countercharge 1. So this allows you to keep your attacks going effectively when you do the whole combo with Great Star and Razor that costs counterblast. Like Fake Bomber helps you keep going on that, because you're going to have Soul from shoving cards into Soul, and you're also going to have counterblast from Fake Bomber. Then we have 2 Air Force Eliza. So Eliza has the charge ability, then it also has a second ability that says Generation Break 1. At the end of the battle that this unit boosted a charging rearguard, you can counterblast 1. If you do, you bind the boosted unit, call it to an open rearguard circle, and if this unit is charging, that unit gets plus 2k until the end of the turn, and you put this unit on the bottom. So when you have Air Force Eliza, boosted by Heavewees, that's a 26k column automatically. And then at the end of the battle, Eliza will be able to counterblast 1, bind Heavewees, call Heavewees back out, you make it charging again. It gets 2k from Eliza if Eliza was charging as well, which is ideal. And then you put Eliza to the bottom, and then Heavewees is 21. So it can be just, really solid numbers and attacks for you. Then we have 1 Mecha Trainer as our starter. It's basically our Lizard Soldier Conroe for Spike Brothers. It has Forerunner, the old version where it doesn't say Forerunner, but it does the same thing. And then it has an activation skill that is Rearguard Circle, Counterblast 1, retire this unit, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or less Spike Brothers card, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. So, it just helps you get any grade 1 or less that you need. Sometimes you need a Fake Bomber, sometimes you need Eliza, sometimes you need a PG, sometimes you need a Stride Fodder. So just all according to what you need and what you don't. Then we have 4 Liar Lips. This is our crit trigger of the deck. It is our Rising crit trigger. It says when your Vanguard attacks, if you have a grade 3 or greater with Rising in its name, you can shove this card into the Soul, draw a card, and your Vanguard gets plus 5,000. Also helps build your Soul, but also functions as a crit trigger to add some aggression to this deck. Then we have 2 Silence Joker. Silence Joker is also a crit that adds aggression to your deck by being a crit, but it also has an ability that says move it to the Soul and unflip a damage. So again, this fuels your Soul, fuels your counterblast. Then we have 4 Dudley Schemer as our draw trigger, or one of our draw triggers. It allows you to put into the Soul, choose one of your units, and it gets plus 3k. Then we have 2 other draw triggers, Dandy Register. You can really use anything you want for that. There's not another draw trigger that's explicitly useful. And then we run 4 Dudley Cheers Lindsay. This is our new binding heal trigger, I will call them, that says when you G-guard with this card, if you have 2 heals there, then you can just bind both heals from your drop zone, and you can countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. And we're back, guys. Going into our G zone, we have 4 Blackhorn King Bull Power Agrius. Agrius kind of increases our aggression in this deck as well. It just allows you to do multi-attacks. You also draw a card from it. And then you usually use it when you're Generation Break 2 or higher, so that you can get off the full ability, which is calling cards back, calling all the cards back from your bind zone. So this also helps recycle your PGs when you bind using your PG's ability, Cunning Brain. And so you're just able to do a lot of stuff with Full Power Agrius, and it's very useful in that way. So the skill is when this unit attacks, you can counterblast 1, flip a Bull Power Agrius face up, and then you choose any number of your rear guards and bind them face up. If you bind 3 or more, then you draw a card, and then you can call up to 2 cards from your bind zone for each face-up card in your G zone. So if you use this card first stride, you will only be able to call back 2, but if you use it second stride, you'll be able to call back 4, and then third stride, you'll be able to call back anything, because you know, you can't call, like, you can only call a maximum of 5 cards, and you will be Generation Break 3 or higher. Moving on to Great Hero Rising Supernova, we run 2 of these. We really just run this card so that we can get GB2 in the case that we can't really do anything else useful. But it also makes the card charging, so if we have a card in our hand that's not good on the field, but it's good on the rear guard, and it's only good if it's charging, then we go into this card so that this card can make that card charging. So when this unit attacks Vanguard, you can flip a G unit, and then okay, so we go into that card to make it charging. And then the skill is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can flip any unit face up in your G zone. If you do, you choose up to the same number of your rear guards as the number of Rising Supernovas in your G zone. They become charging. If the number of your rear guards that are charging is 4 or more, then all your units get plus 10,000 until the end of the turn. Something important to note with this card, you can charge units that do not have the charge ability. So they will just go back to, they kind of like gain the charge ability, which is kind of cool. But mainly you're just wanting to use it to charge a unit that you already have that can become charging and have a charging ability without doing much to kind of go around that. Then we do run 2 Shoot Down King Miracle Ace. Miracle Ace is kind of like a mini GB8. It's really, really useful when you're on the grade 3, the old grade 3 Rising Nova. But less useful, a lot less useful when you're on Great Star, just because you can't do much unless you have a Great Star in your hand too. But activation skill of Miracle Ace is Counterboss 1, flip a Miracle Ace face up. Until the end of the turn, this unit gets a couple abilities. The first ability is when your rear guard is put into the deck, you choose one of your units that gets plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. And then the Generation Break 3 ability is Soul Blast 2 when the rear guard is put into your deck, and you choose a card from your hand, and then you call it to an open rear guard circle. So this card is like a GB8 that works from your hand. If you have a lot of really good cards in your hand, you're forcing your opponent to higher damage, and then you can just Miracle Ace them and try to go for a game. Then we do run 1 Great Villain Dirty Picaro. Dirty Picaro is kind of like in that scenario where you just have an open board, you're GB3 or higher, and you just want to, you know, go in for like a kind of stagnant turn that's still aggressive. This unit's effect is when it attacks a Vanguard, you can Counterblast 2, choose a card from your G zone, turn it face up, and then choose a card from your hand and put it into your soul. And then you call a card from your deck, or you can call a card from your deck that is up to the same number of cards as face-up cards in your G zone. So if you have 5 face-up in the G zone, which means your Generation Break 6, you'll be able to call 5 cards, etc. If you're at GB4, you'll be calling 3 cards, etc. If you're at GB5, you'll be calling 4 cards. But you call the cards to open rear guard circles, and then you shuffle your deck. So that allows you to play a lot of good combos with like Fake Bomber, Eliza, Razor Brugger, the Heavewees, just combos like that you're just able to pick and choose your combos because you're able to call any card that you want. We do run 1 Great Villainous, Dampier Lily. Dampier Lily is really good for on-hit pressure as your first stride. Just honestly pluses you a card, and sometimes the card plus that you get can help you in the game just because spikes work off of shoving cards into the soul for attacks. So when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you can choose 1 card with the charge ability from your hand, call it to the rear guard circle until the end of the turn. That unit gets plus 5,000 power. And then when this unit is put into the deck from rear guard circle, you draw a card. So you basically make it charging so that you can draw a card. It's like a break even because you're losing a unit, but you're drawing a card. It's a break even for sure, but it also gives you an extra attack. Then we have 1 super heavy tank, Tiger Centurion. Tiger Centurion has a very simple ability. It's basically just activation during the main phase, Counterboss 1. Choose any number of your rear guards with a charge ability, and they become charging until the end of the turn. And then you can choose 5 of your rear guards other than the units chosen with the first effect, and then they get plus 2,000 power. So what this means is that if you already have 2 charging units on the board, you select the other units that are charging, and you can have them become charging. And you can choose none so that you can go for the other ability to just give power to your field if you want to. But 2K does make a difference in this deck. Obviously, if you have like a Heave that goes from like 19 to 21, and you know the list goes on. Freaking Razor Bruggard goes from 14K to 16K, and just the numbers always are changing. Great Star goes from 14K if it used its charging ability to 16K. So just things like these that you notice over time of playing this deck, that 2K does change a number. Finally, for our regular G units, we run 1 Rampage Evil Rogue Hellheart 8. Hellheart 8 is our Generation Break 8. It's absolutely ridiculous in the stack. It's Generation Break 8 skills. When your unit attacks, you choose one of your units until the end of the turn. It gets plus 10,000 power, and a skill that says at the end of the battle that this unit attacked or boosted, you shove the card and a card from your hand into the soul, and then you can call 1 card to an open rearguard circle from your deck. So this allows you to basically keep attacking your opponent with plus 10k on every single one of your attacks until you are out of hand. So a lot of times your opponent cannot survive the GB8 because it's just so many attacks and so high powered. So you just kind of go into that as like a last resort when you reach Generation Break 8. For our G-Guards, we run 4 different G-Guards. We run 1 Obstruction King Terrible Linus. Terrible Linus says that when it's placed on the Guardian Circle, you can choose a G-Guard, turn it face up, and then if you do, you choose one of your rear guards and you can put into your soul. And then for every 2 of your open rear guard circles, this unit gets plus 10,000 shield. So it's pretty good. It can become a 46k if you have 4 open rear guard circles. Obviously, your biggest G Guardian by far. You also sometimes want to G Flip Guardian into this, just so that you can Hellheart 8 the next turn, depending on where you are in your Generation Break 8 acceleration. Then we have 1 Sturdy Barricade Hecaton Gus. Hecaton Gus says when it's placed on the rear guards or the Guardian Circle, choose up to 3 cards with different grades from your drop zone or soul, and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. And then if 3 cards were put, then this unit gets plus 10,000 shield, making it 36k shield. Obviously, one of your bigger G Guardians as well is our Juggernaut Maximum, which is when it's placed on Guardian Circle, choose one of your grade 2 or less rear guards, and you may have that unit get plus 10,000. If you do, then this unit gets plus 10,000 shield, and then at the end of the battle, you put the rear guard that you gave power to on the bottom of the deck. So you're kind of like sacrificing a rear guard just to be 36. Like, I would just say Hecaton Gus is a lot better, but in some situations you do want to get your rear guards out of harm's way with Juggernaut Maximum. Then we have 1 excellent Cheerleader Alley, finishing up our G Guardian lineup. It basically just, if you have 3 or less rear guards, which you shall always have pretty much in spikes, just because you're like doing hit and run attacks, then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So it becomes a 31k shield by itself. Not bad at all. Obviously it's our weakest G Guardian though, so you only want to use it to guard like little petty attacks, I would say. But opening back up our card fight area here, we are going to start going into the Rising games. So the first game we're playing into this Magatu Turbo deck that one of my friends has been playing. So we ride, we call for the rush, then we attack, we check a heal. He checks the heal as well, but he does not heal because he is not, he did not have damage. So we take some attacks, we ride, we attack, we get a draw trigger, and then we attack him for 21. He doesn't guard because he would be wasting like so many cards from his hand essentially to do it. He rides a grade 3, we block his rear guard, we take his Vanguard, he hits his stand trigger. He checks 3 by accident, but he puts 1 back, so it's fine. We stride for our turn, and now that we know that he's at 4 damage, we can, essentially just go in on him. He has like 5 cards in his hand, so it's like very unlikely that he's going to be able to survive our turn. So I call Rising Great Star, I use the skill to call Razor Bruggard, and then I attack him for 11k, he intercepts, charging goes to the bottom. I attack for 23, then I use Eliza, call it back, it's 16, I attack with 16 and charging, put it back, and then I attack with Tiger Centurion, calling 1 from Fake Bomber, and then calling 1 from the On-Stride ability, which would be Heave. He PGs, I add the heal trigger power to my rear guard, just so that it can hit, and that ends up being a good game on first stride, just because that's kind of how spikes work. Like, they want to kill you on first stride ideally, and if they can't do that, then they're in like kind of like a lackluster spot, unless you're playing the Generation Break 8 version where they just stockpile cards and then they explode onto you with Generation Break 8, but we are not playing that version. Second match, we're going into a fight that looks like it's Liberators. We are attacked by 12 because we did start off. We ride and we call a lot of 9K grade 2s to rush. We do check a crit. And remember, guys, the goal is to, like, you know, try to get your opponent to some high damage so that when you actually do start doing all of your charge combos, your opponent has to guard them. So he attacks 11, we no guard, and then he attacks our rear guard, we guard that as well. We just stay on grade 2, and we decide to just attack into him to waste some cards from his hand. We also don't have a grade 3 in our hand, so that's kind of unfortunate. But he does play Aglavol, use Aglavol to get Catch Goal, and use Catch Goal to get E-Skull. He attacks our rear guard, then our Vanguard. And then we take a damage. It is a draw trigger. We ironically draw into our grade 3. We have a stride fodder, so it's very good. We go into Dampier Lily. He's thinking, he no guards. We check a crit, giving crit power to Vanguard, and we call a card. Then we use Dampier Lily to call a card to the board. It's 24k, goes back, and then we have one more card, which calls out a Fake Bomber, and then we attack for 26, calling out a Fake Bomber. He guards with the remaining 2 cards from his hand, and then we use that Fake Bomber to attack his rear guard. He does use the free stride skill of E-Skull to put it back to the bottom, counter boss 1, and stride for free. He uses Gritter skill because he is not on the preferred ride target. Then he uses the Catch Goal to get a grade 3. And then he uses Coel to get the 7k and shuffle his deck. He goes into battle, he attacks for 16, and then he attacks. We PG with our 0, hoping that he doesn't check a stand trigger so that we can stride. We actually do top deck stride fodder, so we didn't need to do that. But we do Bullpower Agrius to call back 3, and he no guards it. We check 3 cards. One of them is, you know, just a draw trigger, and that ends up being GG again for us winning. And then going into our third game here, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're playing against Liberators again. Yeah, we are. Same person. And we G-assist because we don't have a 1 in our starting hand, which kind of sucks, but we get rid of a heal and a Wink Killer that could have helped us pressure a lot more. He does check a heal, which we are happy about, just because that's a heal in his damage zone that we don't have to deal with later, really. He attacks us for 14, no guard. He heals to heal off, which sucks for us, but we are surviving. So we attack with Vanguard, he no guards, then we attack with rear guard to Vanguard, takes a damage. This time he has to G-assist, he does get Excel, which is pretty good for him. And then he binds 2 cards and binds 2 G units. So he attacks 16 to Vanguard, I no guard, I get a draw trigger, power draw, and then I guard the second one with a 2 to pass. Then I do Rising Great Star skill when I ride it, make it charging, and then I go into Dampier Lily. I attack 9 to rear guard, then 14 to Vanguard, goes back, using the skill to call out a card, in charge, Fake Bomber, attack with Fake Bomber for 12, and then we attack for 33, checking 3 cards, and none of that mattered. We don't use the GB2 ability because we're not GB2. He goes into Ceram Glitter, uses Coel, and then he uses Gritter skill to call 2 cards. He puts the crit back, looks at top cards for a bluish wave card, does not get it, and then he calls a Aglavol. He attacks for 16, I take it. He attacks for 42, and I use Terrible Linus to G-flip and add a card to Soul, guarding for a 2 to pass. He doesn't check any triggers, so thankfully we are able to just take a damage. And then we stride, and we're thinking about our stride. We go into Dirty Picaro. we're able to just attack with Dirty Pigaro, use the skill to call 4 cards. Hit a draw trigger, a heal trigger, and a stride fodder. We attack for 16. I thought I could use skill of lethal forward, but lethal forward is actually calling the open circle, so I kind of misplayed there. But I attack on my other column. He G guards, and then we use fake bomber to call a card. And then we use the skill of Razor Bruggard, counterboss 1, put in the soul. Then we use the skill of Rising Great Star to counterboss 1, put in the soul, call a Razor Bruggard out. We attack for 11k. He's able to guard that, and then we attack for 21. He just takes it. So in our hand, we only have a PG, a G guard, and a 2. We're at 4 damage, so we're probably just gonna have to take one. But he does use the skill of both of his triggers that he just ripped off the deck to call more cards and search. He does use Aglavald's ability to look at the top, add a blue wave card to his hand finally. And then he's using the skill of Garmor to look at the top 6 cards of his deck. For however many are high beasts, he gets 4k and to one of his rear guards. And then if he has 4 more high beasts, his Vanguard gets a crit. So since Vanguard had a crit, I PG'd it. Thankfully, he just checked a crit trigger. And then I G-guard for the last one, put in my cards back. He ends his turn. We don't drive check a stride fodder, which sucks. But we just attack a Vanguard. He no passes us. And we do heal, which actually keeps us alive into the next turn. So he uses Garmor to call 2 cards, puts them back, gets the crit, puts it back, shuffles, doesn't get anything. And then he uses the skill of the PG to bind one of his cards. And then when he does, he gets a card off the top, he gets a catch goal. He uses Catch Goldu to get Bruno. And then he's using the skill of Garmor to give his units +4, and then he gets a critical to Vanguard. So I take the first attack, getting a crit trigger. He does check no triggers again, which I'm pretty lucky. And then we literally have to top deck a Stride Fodder, and we do because we're godlike. So we go into the Generation Break 8, we give 10k to the booster and the skill. So not only does he not have a PG in his hand, but we get 5 cards essentially on the guard circle. So he 3 passes us. We do check another heal and a crit. We use the skill of the Generation Break 8 to call a card. And then we attack, and he just literally cannot guard it. So that ends up being GG. And yeah, that was our Spike Brothers games. And therefore, that was our Spike Brothers FutureFight Rising deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like if you want to see more videos like this. Also, let me know what's going on down in the comments below if you have any questions about the deck. Also, check out the description below because it has everything from our Patreon and our Patreon and our merch store to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. But yeah, with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.